All right, everybody, welcome back. Another episode of the Run Your Mouth podcast. We are here from my apartment. My studio is out of commission. The Optimum people are back to just shutting down the internet. You know, you pay for studio rent. You pay $150 a month for the boosted internet on top of your apartment internet, and then they just randomly shut it off. And I don't know, how much time do I want to spend on the phone fighting with Indians, turning on and off boxes? So I don't know. Maybe we'll just be back to doing it in my apartment and pissing off the neighbors. But anyways, depressing day. Kind of didn't want to do an episode, but we'll comment on the Charlie Kirk thing real quick, and then we'll just pretend like nothing happened and go back to the other stupidity and nonsense. Usually, I mean, for those of you who've been following the show, probably for the 10 years that I've done it, I don't really talk about celebrity deaths because I kind of feel like it, in a way, is making it about you, or it's what your opinion, this or that or the other thing, or on the bigger tragedies, it's like, I don't know, what do I have to add? It's horrible. We don't have to dwell on horribleness, but something hits very close to home, even though I don't regularly follow Charlie Kirk. I'm sure he's got a lot of opinions that I don't have, but watching a guy give a speech in front of college kids while wearing a t-shirt that says freedom on it and then just getting shot for sharing words is, it seems... I don't know. It seems particularly alarming, shocking, horrifying, whatever word you want to throw in there. For my only real comment, other than it truly is tragic, is that for anyone who flirts with or engages in violence, it's such a losing proposition. Because on the one hand, if you're successful in your endeavor, you're going to make a martyr out of the other person and probably empower more of what you don't like. And on the other side, if you're actually successful, I think the elites, not that I'm not saying that Charlie Kirk is in this category, but I think if you actually successfully impose violence against the elites, those people have more power and they're better at using power and violence than we are. So there's no victory here because, you know, the more successful you are at using violence, the more you empower other people to use violence against you, and we're all just going to lose some freedom in the process. So, you know, hopefully they actually catch the right guy. I don't like that the police instantly just assumed that it was the bald man. That's bad police work, just to assume that bald people are the ones responsible for crimes. And like I said, depressing day, absolutely horrifying. It's not the society that any of us want to live in. I don't think that there's anything more that I have to say on the topic or needs to be shared. So, you know, with respect, we're now going to go on with our regularly scheduled nonsense. I will take a couple comments, and then we'll find a rhythm, and we'll just go back to our typical stupidity. St. Michael, sad day, indeed. Yeah, kind of horrifying. I don't know why this one strikes me more than the typical tragedy, but it does. Matzo balls. Needed this, Robbie. Much love. Nobody better come for our favorite one, running his mouth. Well, lucky enough, I think I'm low profile enough that you know, nobody's. That wasn't my tooth. That was a nicotine product. Kev 2033 makes political comedy seem more dangerous donuts. Yeah, and also it's like I think even though it's not my values, I think people you know, revitalizing conservatism and you know, sharing a message of Christianity and faith is probably something that we could use more of in the society. Algorithm letting, you know, jizz beard. Do I have jizz in my beard? I don't think I showered before the episode, so it should be pretty clear of jizz. But you know, if it's there and I'm just not seeing it, and you guys are seeing it, if other people could let me know so that I could correct that. Ruther turd. That's fine. That's the first time I laughed all day. Well, there you go. All right. Well, we'll read two more comments and then we'll just get to my nonsense. Adam Choate, it's because, at least partly because he gave David a platform. Dude is adjacentish to y'all, even if he's a Zionist. Yeah, I don't know. It's also just, if like, whatever your political opinions are, you should have the freedom to express it. And if the idea is that you're actually winning the war of ideas and people like what you have to say and you're reaching out and you're touching people, and well, I might not have agreed with him on the Israel thing, or I you know, I don't pay that much attention to other people, so I don't really know his full platform. But The idea of sharing, a more faith-based, like you look at the marriage rates in this country, it seems like a mostly positive message, even if I disagreed with him on that topic or even other topics. But just the idea that you can hit a critical mass with your words, and that could lead to people killing you to undermine the movement, your efforts. Like, it's not the world we want to live in. Casey, my kids are both upset, which is why I think it's testament to his reach to young people. Agreed. All right, let's get into some nonsense. Did a lot of traveling this past week. We'll do a couple quick just randoms to get moving. Firstly, is that Venezuela boat bombing. I think I mostly agree with Rand Paul's analysis, which is we shouldn't be engaging in violence without due process. I guess maybe that somewhat fits in. It doesn't fit in. No connection. I did just kind of think for the claims of that drugs is violence against the United States citizens, and so therefore we need to kill people over bringing drugs into the country. If you're only going after Venezuelan drugs, aren't you just at that point basically just working for the other drug dealers? Doesn't that just become kind of a platform where like you're the corrupt police officer who just kind of deals with one gang and lets the other gangs run rampant? Like, I'm just saying, if you're truly concerned with drug usage in the country and you're only going after Venezuelan importers, and it just kind of feels to me like you're actually working in the drug trade as much more than you're actually trying to limit the drug trade. All right, another just quick random is, and this is a little bit more lighthearted. I'm sure a lot of you guys watched that Philly baseball incident of the lady shaming a man into giving her back his baseball. And the first thing I thought, you guys remember that scene in Kill Bill where Uma Thurman comes and kills a lady, and then the little kid is there, and then she says to the little kid, listen, one day, if you want to settle this score and you want to get your vengeance, you can come see me. And hopefully we get a Kill Bill 3, which is that child trying to get her vengeance. But I was just thinking it would be great if that kid grew up and practiced his Karen and shaming skills, and then just called the companies that lady's kids worked at, got them fired, or just made a big stink every day wherever that lady's working, gets his vengeance. It's it's just bad that you can't act like a dickhead in public. And I'm all like, listen, I'm actually very meek in public. I talk a loud game. You hand me a microphone, I podcast, or when I'm doing stand-up on a stage. But other than that, I'm standing in the corner, I'm sipping on a beverage, quietly hating everybody and saying nothing about it. And I'm also not one of the hammered fellows that gets very wild. If anything, I get calmer. If anything, I get a little bit nicer. All the other things that other people describe of like alcoholism is not my experience, because booze actually works rather well for me, and I become a happier, more loving individual and a more peaceful person. And I can actually sit still and not do the wandering around antsy thing. But listen, at a baseball game, I think it's an odd thing that everyone gets all worked up. For some reason, when a t-shirt goes into an audience, you've heard 1,000 jokes about this. It's a $10 t-shirt, and all of a sudden, people will punch someone else in the face so that they can get the t-shirt that came out of a can, and it's fantastically stupid. But getting a foul ball at a baseball game, I remember once as a kid, I actually had real good seats behind the dugout, and a player on the Yankees threw me a ball. I'm sure I lost at this point, but in that particular moment, you feel like you're the champion of the whole world. You feel like a winner. It's like walking into the casino, putting it all on red and winning, and feeling like, my God, I've been blessed by the Lord, and I'm actually a winner. And the way it works is it's kind of fair game. That ball lands in a section, whoever snags it, snags it. That's just kind of the way, that's the system that we have. It's like I've said on airplanes, it's first to stand. That's the system that we have. And then, most of the time people are kind of nice that if there's a kid around, even if you won the ball, you do the gracious thing and you hand it to the kid because, they're a kid. And so you can make some kid's day. Now, this lady, probably a little hammered, probably has a lot of Philly attitude. She feels like she's alone in the section. She feels like, man, I can grab this ball. This ball's right in front of me. And then all of a sudden, dad with dad powers trying to get a ball from his kid swoops in, grabs it out of the seat, walks away a whole section over and brings it to her kid. And now most people would go, wow, all right, I guess I wasn't quick enough on the trigger. I guess that dad was better at this than I was. And then they would see the ball being handed to a kid and go, all right, well, it's going to a kid. But this lady used the one skill that she knew how to do, which was show up and yell and scream and get in someone's face and say, shame on you, to the point like any other dude is just like, all right, well, I don't want to deal with whatever this is. This sounds like I'm being accused of something, and I don't want to have to deal with this energy for the rest of my life. So, happy wife, happy life. Just take this and please just leave me alone and get away from me. But other people have said this, the absolute, and listen, that's the skills that she has. She thought that she was entitled to the ball. She doesn't quite understand the baseball system of whoever snags it gets it. She's a lady. She's like, I didn't have the reflexes. I didn't realize I was competing with a dude from 3 sections over. And she feels like that ball was wrongfully taken from her. And she doesn't care that a kid is there because it's an injustice and she was supposed to be awarded to it. All I got to say is this seems like a massive opening for bar business where maybe you could just start a bar like comedy clubs where people have to give up their phones and you can just call it dickheads. And it's an opportunity to go to a public location where you can actually just act like a dickhead, and not have it be on the internet for everyone to shame you for the rest of your life. Let me tell you, people, if you're drinking in stadiums these days, everyone's got cell phone cameras, and you better be careful. You better be careful drinking in stadiums. If you're listen, I'm a lucky drunk because the way that I drink, I get a lot calmer. I have a lot more love for humanity. All the little things that irritate me just fade away. And so I don't have these concerns when I'm drinking. But if you're one of these people who gets more hostile and turns into more of a dickhead, you might want to just watch your dickhead behavior when you're in public locations such as this. All right, we'll take a couple comments. Chris Nelson, much peace and positive vibes to you today, Rob. I agree with you. Jacob Maslin, we need you in Northwest Indiana, Gary. Is that an area? Is that a crazy, I don't know. I don't know what that is. Kev, we talked about the stand once, Robbie. LOL, you're a chill dude. I don't remember our conversation, but I will take your word for it. Deep Stats, is this about the Charlie Kirk shooting? It was. We're trying to ignore it now and move on and just talk about regular topics like it's any other old episode, but it's a little difficult because it's jarring and terrible what happened. Right in digital, I'm beside myself today. The Charlotte stabbing, the church shooting, no more, it's enough. Need to hear from you and Dave for some perspective. Well, wait for the next episode of Part of the Problem. I said all that I have to say about it. It's terrible, it's horrible, and now on to other stupidity. Anarcho Rica, Michael Jackson came from Gary, Indiana, LOL. All right, well, apparently pump out people who, if their balls are taken off, can sing like a child into adulthood and then move on to weirder things. Phil D-Roll, more reason for me to be my hermit self. I was right, stay home. Yeah. If you're a dickhead when you drink, you got to find a bar like Dickheads where everyone's forced off their phones, or maybe you were right to stay home. Did you read about the stabber said he got that white girl? Yeah, I did read about that today. Yeah, that probably adds a little bit more context to the conversation we had yesterday on Part of the Problem. All right, let's move on to some other randoms and things that I would like to add to my list of disdain for humanity. I spend way too much time on airplanes. And so I got a couple little petty things. This seems so out of place on today, but we're just going for it, everybody. I'm back on the road tomorrow. There's no other opportunity to do an episode. So, we're going to formally shut the door in our heads on the sadness of the Charlie Kirk thing and move on with nonsense. So that's the last I bring it up. Let's start with this. I had this one. All right, here's a little one that drove me nuts. You guys have all had this experience. And this person is worse than the person who spends too much time at the coffee tables. I've already yelled and ranted about people who turn the little coffee area into their personal living room where they have a whole procedure for slowly pouring in the sugar, boxing you out, and then have no spatial awareness. Well, they'll spend 10 minutes in front of you preparing their morning coffee and then turn around and go, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I didn't realize you were there. Just no spatial awareness for the universe around them. But I encountered a new one. We've all had this, it's everyone's pet peeve where someone cuts you off in a car and then they drive slowly, or if you're walking on a public street and you seem to have the exact same walking rhythm as another individual, where you're slowly behind them and you start feeling this creepy feeling where it feels like you're just stalking some other individual. So then you have to try and walk fast, like get around them out of your rhythm. And then sometimes you got to do that for too long. You look like a psychopath, like you're walking too fast. Or sometimes it happens to you where someone's right behind you and they got the exact same rhythm as you do. And now you're in that just awkward space of like, why is this guy? And it's just part of life, right? I don't have, listen, like I said, first to stand, reasonable policy. First person who grabs a baseball game, reasonable policy. I don't know that I have a solution here on what to do when two people, you should probably become friends. You should probably go, hey, we seem to have similar walking styles here. Instead of having this awkward tension, maybe we should just both hold hands and walk down the street together. But this is the first time I've had this one. All right. Some guy, I'm walking, and some guy merges right in front of me, and then he walks at exactly the pace that I'm walking at. And now I even slow down to create a little bit more distance because of how awkward this situation is. And then the guy starts looking back at me like, what's up with this guy? Hey, what are you doing over there, guy? Hey, why are you following me? And it's like, you just cut me off, man. Don't put the shame of this situation on me. You're the asshole who stood right in front of me, is doing the slow same walk thing, and now you're, what, I got to walk the other direction now? I just got to give up on going this way and be like, you know what, I didn't even like this way anyways. All right, here's another random one, is pilots all the time, they pretend like they're being tipped. They pretend like, do they expect tips at the end of flights with the way that they make announcements? We just want to let you know that because of the fault of other people, we're going to be stuck at this gate too long. But, you know, we don't think it's going to take too much time. And we should be up in the air in a couple minutes because the people who made the mistake are now correcting their mistake. It had absolutely nothing to do with us. And once we're up in the air in a couple minutes, we're going to see if we can make up some time in the air. And the first thing that it's like, wait, if we got an option of making up time in the air, can't you just always do that? Whatever is the quick route, do you guys take the scenic route? If you're flying an airplane, is there the more scenic route with nicer views that sometimes you guys take off and you just go, hey, I know that these people have to sit back there for 6 hours smelling each other's farts and waking each other up to go to the bathrooms and have tray tables hit into their arms every 5 minutes. But like, and by the way, every time they make that announcement, they never make up the time. You don't have to get my hopes up. You don't have to, I don't have to be sitting in the back knowing I got a 7-hour plane ride in front of me and getting excited that you're going to turn it into 6.5 hours. And then for us to land and be like, oh yeah, well, we successfully landed early, but no fault of ours. There's no gates open. So you're going to have to sit here for longer. Just spare me. And you're not getting tipped anyways. No one's tipping the pilots on the way out if you got us there any sooner. So no reason to get our hopes up. All right. And then last thing, listen, I've already fixed beverages on planes and said, get rid of these, these flight attendants. Just replace the back of the plane with more bathrooms and a couple vending machines. You can get up when you want to and you can buy yourself a soda. We don't need the tray table coming up and down the aisle, waking us all up. But I have this all the time, where I tell them, just give me the can. I don't want the cup with ice. I don't want this tray table in front of me. I don't want to have to be sitting here wondering when you're coming back for the cup with ice. It becomes a whole to-do. And then sometimes other people, they get real sloppy with their tray tables. And that just made me realize, aside from the vending machines, let's just go with the cup holder system. The tray table is a nightmare. Sodas are falling over. People are knocking them over. You're stuck with your cups with ice for too long. You got nowhere to put it. We got the armrest. Why don't you just put the movie cup holders right there, and we can all just move on with our lives. All right, let's get into some news topics brought to you by YoKratom.com, home of the $60 kilo, only place in the entire world you can get an entire kilo of kratom for just $60. And of course, guys, Porch Store is going all the way to December. I even think I'm going to add some dates. I haven't done that yet, but I do have to work on adding some dates. I know I got a Long Island date that I added. I have to actually get that up on my calendar. I think I'm going to add, I got a venue in Denver. I got to hit them up. I might add a Denver. I might add a Chicago. And I'd like to add a New York City if you got a spot in New York City. And I think that's all the places that I could potentially add. But coming up this weekend, I've got Birmingham, Alabama. It's my third time doing that one. I got all new material from last year, almost up to an hour of material. A lot of stuff I'm really excited about, and a lot of stuff that's absolutely found its groove and is working and is killing. So come on out. Atlanta, Georgia. That might be my fifth time doing Atlanta. Once again, not repeating a single joke from the earlier years that I've been there. Anderson, South Carolina. Never been there. Then I'm doing Las Vegas with Dave off to Mesa, Arizona for one day. That is typically one of the best shows of the entire tour. Then back to Omaha, Nebraska, Kansas City, Hawthorne, California, doing the run with Brian McWilliams, Aguanga again, Santa Monica just added, never done that before. And there's even more dates if you want to go to porchtour.com. You can see all of the live comedy dates that are coming up. All right, I was not in the studio today. And as a result, thanks to Optimum.com, I was not able to film an intro, but I did have some intro jokes, so we'll just do it as me, which I bet some of you will prefer, some of you will hate, but next week we'll be back, the way that we normally do it, and the next year we're going to have a whole new format for this, but let's do it. Someone in the chat, just if you guys want to hum along and play news music that would match what I'm talking about. So if one of you people in the chat knows the typical intro song, which I don't have with me right now, and you want to just hum it along so that it's in the background and it makes this whole thing flow more smoothly and adds comedic effect, if you can make all the background noises, or if you want to call into the show right now and do it in the background, this is your opportunity. All right, here we go. First up, these are all the things. If you're not familiar with the show, we got 1,500 people in this live chat going on right now. But here's all the topics that we're about to address momentarily. Starting with, in style news, why pregnant women are dressing like a loofah. Next up, we have concerns. Oh, I'm sure you guys saw the video of them shooting a Hellfire missile at what looked like a UFO, and it just bouncing off the UFO. So next on the show, concerns over poking the bear after a Hellfire missile bounces off a UFO, while others in the military are saying, well, we haven't tried firing 2 missiles at the same time. Next up, we've got New York governor to allow COVID vaccines for all. With changes in CDC guidelines, Kathy Hochul makes the COVID vaccine available to all in New York City. We interview the idiots that still want it. Next up, Tesla offers mammoth $1 trillion pay package to Musk, sets lofty targets. And here's Bernie Sanders to comment, we can't have trillionaires. I'm just a measly millionaire, but trillionaire? I mean, how much money have we printed that someone could have $1 trillion? I think maybe we're printing too much money. If someone $1 trillion, how do you even have $1 trillion? All right. And that's our intro. Now we can get into some topics. And so let's talk about all the latest of the Jeffrey Epstein scandal. And listen, I've already broken this down so many times on the show. But if we were interested in unwinding what happened with Jeffrey Epstein, it seems like there's so many clues. And some of the obvious ones are congressional hearings, bringing in all the staff members, actually getting all the names from these victims of who they were trafficked to, bringing all those people in to give testimony. There were 3, I just recently read this. This one blew my mind. But when Bill Cosby got off because he had been given a plea agreement earlier, or a non-prosecution agreement from the prosecutors if he was honest or gave testimony about something. He later went to jail for the crime, and then they had to let him out. That is currently, at least as far as I understand from the words of Ghislaine Maxwell's lawyer, the complaint of Ghislaine Maxwell's legal team is that she should not be in jail because the plea agreement that was reached between Epstein and the state of Florida included not prosecuting any co-conspirators. Now, here's what's interesting. The co-conspirators who were listed by name as people who were arranging the massages and making other things amongst the Epstein land, have smooth sailings, the names listed, there were 2 women listed, neither of them were Ghislaine Maxwell. Bring those people in front of Congress, even if they have immunity. Let them sit there and plead the fifth, or at least give a little bit of insight into what was going on. There was also a J.P. Morgan Chase suit, which we're going to find out about later, in which, they reached an agreement with, they had paid out over $1 billion over the years, or processed over $1 billion in payments to Epstein, and numerous payments were flagged within their system as basically being money laundering, and they didn't do any of the normal protocols there. But you got all the staff to talk to. You've got all the potential names. You've got all the documents that could be released. You've got the chain of custody at the FBI as to what happened with the safe that was pulled out of his office. seems just like if you were serious about muckracking what happened here, there's a lot of starting points. And now, obviously, Donald Trump's doing some goofy thing and trying to say that the whole thing's a hoax. And I think the Democrats are also being a little bit goofy and trying to pin this whole thing on Donald Trump. Like I said, if we are interested in the truth of the situation, it seems like there's a lot of angles to actually muckrack what happened. But now you had this storyline that Donald Trump, they were friends. Not only were they friends, but he sent this bizarre letter with a naked lady painting. And the way that they leak things, that now 3 weeks later, we get to see what the naked lady was. It's not much of a naked lady. It's just like a little sketch of a titless mannequin. The one thing that makes it seem very Donald Trump, though, is not even the signature at the bottom, but that it hilariously looks like he put pubic hair there. That feels very Donald Trump. I'm not saying that this is Donald Trump. I'm not saying that this is the way that we unwind the Epstein storyline. I don't think it makes sense to pin the whole thing on Trump. I don't think that that's the concern. I think it's the intelligence agency's involvement and what other pedophiles have just gotten scot-free off the hook. But just in terms of whether or not this is Donald Trump, him signing his name in a way that looks like pubic hair is pretty funny, which makes it seem a little bit Trumpian. And on that note, this is so artful. I feel like it should be able to go for more than a Hunter Biden painting. I mean, you want to talk about artistry? A titless lady with signature pubic hair? That's a nice art piece right there. Add that to my wall. All right. And then this was seemingly a Freudian slip from Mike Johnson. Later walked it back, which I'll tell you guys what the walk back was. And we'll see if we have sound because we got a whole new setup here, and that does typically seem to be an issue. So you guys let me know. Be quick on the trigger to let me know if we have sound. But here is Mike Johnson defending Donald Trump when Donald Trump says that this is a Democratic hoax. And if you haven't heard this already, it does seem like he has a bit of a slip in some of the information that he releases. Let's play it.
What Epstein did is a hoax. It's a terrible, unspeakable evil. He believes that himself. When he first heard the rumor, he kicked him out of Mar-a-Lago. He was an FBI informant to try to take this stuff down. The president knows and has great sympathy for the women who have suffered these unspeakable harms. It's detestable to him.
Well, he does seem to even try and walk it back while he's saying it, but he did say that Donald Trump was apparently an FBI informant against Epstein, which does lead to quite a few questions of how involved might Donald Trump have been, and what kind of immunity was he granted when he turned informant, or if that's even accurate that he was an FBI informant against Epstein. Now, he later walked it back and said, I was wrong when I used the word informant. I just meant that he was working with and helping law enforcement. But it feels like he wasn't supposed to say that, and that perhaps it's a juicy detail. All right, let's take a couple comments, and then let me know if we had sound on that one. Matzo balls, if Trump but pubic hair on it, then clearly he's not into minors. That's a fair point. Good analysis from the chat here. Paul Sawyer saying that he loved my set in Tacoma, brother. Thank you. That was a wild run of good shows. Paul Sawyer, some in the crowd got a little quiet on some of your jokes. Those are the PNW pussies you need to look out for, especially in the light of what happened to Charlie. These people can't handle different OPS. I killed on every show except for the late Saturday show where I did turn it a little weird with them. Robert Holston, it was still a good set, but I definitely leaned into some of my harsher stuff thinking the crowd was as drunk as I was. Robert Holston, if only it could have been me in Charlie's place. That's kind of you. All right, more on the Epstein. Let me know in the chat if we had sound. But this was JP Morgan Chase. This was from Zero Hedge, processed over $1 billion in transactions for Jeffrey Epstein, which included 134 accounts, payments to Ghislaine Maxwell, including $7.4 million for a helicopter. But this was the part that I found more interesting. Inside JP Morgan, the debate over whether to keep Epstein as a client has been simmering for years. Epstein was lucrative. His account held more than $200 million and generated millions in fees, and he opened doors to wealthy prospects and world leaders. He had helped midwife the bank's 2004 purchase of Highbridge Capital Management, earning a $15 million payday. Senior bankers credit him with introduction to figures such as Sergey Brin and Benjamin Netanyahu, which would seem to suggest some sort of a loose relationship with Netanyahu and some sort of a pull to get people meetings. And, I guess if you're going to be an evil devil, you got to know how to make things work for other people where you generate a lot of fees or otherwise a good customer and you get the meetings with important people. But one of the important people listed in the article, and you want to talk about things that are worth investigating, it's what was JP Morgan Chase looking to do that they needed Epstein, or what was that? It wasn't senior bankers. I mean, senior bankers can't get it from JP Morgan Chase, can't get a hold of Netanyahu. What kind of leverage did Epstein have that he was able to get them a meeting that they otherwise couldn't have had? What business transpired as a result of that meeting? And why did Netanyahu only take the meeting after Epstein made the introduction? What kind of pull does Epstein have with the Israeli government or with Netanyahu that he's able to make these meetings happen? You see, these are all more interesting questions than whether or not Donald Trump's pubic hair drawing was actually sent. And on that note, by the way, on the note of the pubic hair drawing, I thought I had another article here about a different birthday booklet, and that seems to me like a humiliation ritual. Having someone, your secretary, reach out to some powerful dude and go, hey, listen, I need you to send a nice note to Epstein for his birthday. And then, you're sitting there as a dude and you have no interest in doing this. You're like, this guy celebrates birthdays and I have to write a note for it. And you're like, what kind of blackmail did he have on me again? Ah, shit. It seems like the Chinese torture camp thing where they make you sign a Communist Party document. So then all of a sudden you're walking around trying to reinforce your own behavior. It's like a nice bitch out touch-in of, hey, remember I own you. And that's why for my birthday you're going to send me a note. Because no dude in the entire world wants to sit down and write a birthday note. Does anything feel grosser than writing a birthday note, even if it is a friend? But particularly a non-friend, you got to go to some birthday party. You didn't want to go to the birthday party. Oh, by the way, honey, they said you got to bring a birthday note. You're like, well, then we're not going. I don't need to be friends with this person anymore if they said that I need to bring a birthday note. All right, next. We've got digital content creators are among the dozens of occupations that the Treasury Department has deemed eligible for the no tax on tips deduction. Thank you, Donald Trump. We spent a lot of time over here criticizing Donald Trump for what he's doing with tariffs and otherwise and removing, wealth from the American people. But, if I can sit down with a certified tax professional and figure out how to maybe go back to donation-based instead of ticket sales, or just turn tickets into the show is free, but you're able to tip me, and then walk away with $20,000 of, income that I don't have to, that's considered tips, I'll take that one. That could be a real help in my life. So if I could actually sit down and figure out, what is legal and how I can figure out how to make less money and get tip more money. Maybe it's as simple as actually putting, trying to monetize the channel on YouTube. But that was surprising to me that at first he was all the way up until $20,000 was considered. I think unless you earn more than $250, I don't really remember all these facts and figures. But if that's the case, that I'm able to make a little bit more money and not have to pay as much in taxes, I'll say straight up, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Trump. I do appreciate it. This was my slide about Epstein aid solicited stories for another birthday booklet, hacked emails show, which I'd already mentioned. And this is one more thing that I wanted to play from this past week's news about Epstein was after I did the last episode, I did walk away with a little bit of an ick feeling, which I stand by everything I said. And I do hope that more of the victims come forward and they actually want to share the names, then it stays in the news, and that it forces government officials and the news networks to actually unwind whatever was going on there. If not for just an interest in truth, that maybe we're all the world's biggest idiots on Twitter, and we thought that there was a massive conspiracy theory here, and we can put it to bed and find out that we're all idiots. But I think until all the questions I asked earlier are answered, there still seems to be a lot of damning evidence out there and in the mix. And obviously, if our other intelligence agencies are using blackmail that involves underage women and entrapping politicians and wealthy figures into ensuring that the war machine or other agendas that we don't particularly care about continues, we'd obviously like to see that unwound. All right, listen, everyone in the chat, you got to talk amongst yourselves for a couple minutes here. Not even a couple minutes, but I forgot to plug in the laptop and it's about to die. So let's just, we'll do that real quick. But you guys, you could talk about whatever you guys want to talk about, you know, whatever it is. Maybe you want to plug sheathunderwear.com, the most comfortable underwear that's ever graced the balls of man, where, you can still go to their website, use promo code RYM and get 20% off the incredibly comfortable underwear that keeps everything in place, keeps your balls feeling real fresh, keeps your chies from chafing together. And I've plugged Sheath many times in this podcast, which is both because they're a loyal sponsor, but also because I absolutely love their underwear. And I would never exercise, porch tour, or be out in hot weather environments without it, because I put on a couple LBs and I do a lot of squats. I got thick, meaty thighs. And let me tell you, when those things are rubbing together and you don't have smooth sheath in between them, you get quite a mess between your legs. So you go to promo code RYM and go to sheath.com, use promo code RYM and get yourself 20% off the greatest underwear that's ever graced the balls of man. All right, so like I said, I think Thomas Massie is really winning the game right now, and he's pushing this Epstein storyline, and I think it's important for us to cleanse ourselves of that and also everything that happened with COVID. Let's go after Fauci. Let's audit the Fed. I think there's a bunch of tangible things that we could do that could actually educate the general public to how reprehensible government is, how little they care for us, how much they would like to infringe on our freedom to the extent that we give them the power to do so. And these are important topics, particularly with Palantir, with surveillance tech, with the way that everything's going. It's important for the American people to realize that government's lying to us and they're looking out for their own power more than our interest, and we need to reduce their power so that we can continue to have freedom. And there's some lurking storylines here that if people were aware of the fact that private banks own the Federal Reserve and that the reason why you can't have a factory job is because of all the inflation and the reason we have wars is because of the Fed and the reason why the politicians vote for the wars is because maybe they've been blackmailed because of people, or, Fauci just straight up lied to you for maybe pharmaceutical profits or other motives, and that they wanted to strip your freedom and make sure that you had a health ID card so that they could move us over to a central bank digital currency and link you to every single purchase so that if they didn't like what you were saying, they could just take away your income and lock you in your home. These are important things that we would like the general public to be educated about. And so, Thomas Massie pushing the Epstein issue and maybe winning over the news cycle and generating enough interest that it becomes an undeniable topic that they then have to turn around and go, I'm even more upset about this than you are, because that's always the way they play it, would all be noble and great and an improvement for our country. And these are little things. I feel like there's little tangible things that if we educated the general public, because, so often you hear the politicians going, well, we just need to have, make sure that people have confidence in the CDC. No, we need the opposite. We need people to realize that government is horrible, does not care about you, and that you having the freedom and knowing that you're responsible for your own decisions will lead to a better outcome than pretending like our overlords are interested in you and making decisions that are in your best interest. That's what we need. We need an educated public that's going to move to have more control over their own lives and more freedom and less tyranny. That's what we need. Anyways, I did walk away with a bit of an icky feeling where I was like, why are there lawyers here? I don't like that there's lawyers here. And then I did wonder if there were lawsuits going on, because even like the Donald Trump case where he was found guilty in civil court of sexual assault, I don't know, there's something in my OCD autism brain, which is how can you be found to be guilty of sexual assault civilly but not criminally? And I get it because there's statute of limitations and this and that, but I was like, I feel like it's got to be both or neither, because if you actually committed sexual assault, maybe you got to be held civilly responsible, and the voting public needs to know that that's actually true. It shouldn't be like some sort of a fictional space of, wait, is the guy who's the president actually a sexual assaulter? Well, that was just civil court. Well, what does that mean? What's the standard? If the guy did that, shouldn't there be justice? And, and so anyways, I found it a little bit like, you know, unsettling. And listen, these women, they deserve payments, and I get it. But I don't think that, like, we should unwind this case in any way. Like, it just seems to me like the two things need to be tied together. And it does kind of muddy the waters if there's potential lawsuits that can be gained from this, that with potential settlements or otherwise, if people aren't held responsible criminally. It should almost be like the criminal side of it dealt with first, and then once someone is deemed to be a criminal, then you can go get a civil judgment against them. But like if the criminal case doesn't happen, or they're found and I get it, there's a different standard for the civil cases. I think that happened with OJ, but I don't know, there's something that doesn't sit right about it. And when I was looking at it afterwards, I was like, I don't love that the lawyers are involved with this. It does kind of muddy the waters where there's now a profit incentive, where as a theoretical, the storyline couldn't be true. And now women have a financial benefit from joining these suits and potentially drumming up public interest and sharing loose evidence where maybe they can win civil cases for lots of money, but we don't actually get justice or unwind the storylines. Don't have a perfect solution here. I'm just saying there's something that doesn't sit right with me about that. And on that note, I did appreciate these comments from Anna Paulina Luna. I heard this in an interview, and it was on my mind because it was like after the episode, I was walking around. I was like, what's the deal with those lawyers? And I was like, man, do they have civil suits going on right now? Because there's something just icky about that if lawyers have these civil suits going on while pretending like they're, and I get it. Like you listen, if you're a victim, you're owed your money, go get your money. But it does murky the, hey, we're looking for justice here, or I think what you and I are more interested in, which is cleaning up the government. Which, not to say that these women don't deserve something, but I did somewhat appreciate these comments from Anna Paulina Luna on the topic. Let's give it a listen.
Banks for not flagging this. And so there's an aspect of our job in that, yes, we can conduct an investigation, but we also can't interfere with personal lawsuits, especially when there's money involved. And so we are doing our best to make sure that we are, delivering on justice, delivering our word and promises to the American people, but then also at the same time that we're not interfering with a class action lawsuit.
I have, a million questions, but
and it does even there murky the waters. We're not sure if we can just release files because then we're helping a class action lawsuit. But I don't know. It was on my mind, so I was appreciated that even if it was just loosely, it was addressed. All right, this is totally random. Different topic, though. The other week they were trying to pretend like Donald Trump was dead or that he had a stroke. I think we've seen him numerous times since then, so at least that's kind of put to bed. I did think that this was hilarious chick logic of, as they were scraping for evidence of the fact that Donald Trump was lying about his well-being. And like I said, on Part of the Problem, that's a problem with being on television every 10 minutes picking a fight with someone, is that you can't have one day for diarrhea for yourself. I'm not his age, and I've had long travel days where I'm like, I can't talk to or deal with anybody. I'm sitting on my couch, leave me alone. I think it's rare for presidents to be on TV as often as he is. And so, I don't know, you can have a cold or something, and it's no reason for panic. He does kind of create the problem for himself by always being on television. But I wanted to play this because I just thought this was such hilarious chick logic. We'll play it, and then I'll comment.
And true character. The post sparked speculation after online users noted Gruden appeared to be wearing the same clothes as in an
All right, I started a little bit late, but it was saying that in trying to prove that Donald Trump was alive and well, he posted a picture of himself. We'll just start from the beginning, of playing golf with John Gruden. And let's just play it. Let's just replay it.
Playing golf with John Gruden, a really nice guy and true character. The post sparked speculation after online users noted Gruden appeared to be wearing the same clothes as in an Instagram photo dated August 23rd, suggesting the golf game may have taken place over a week ago. Observers also linked the timing of the photo to questions about...
Or maybe he's a dude and he just has one golf outfit. It's such a lady thing of, oh, well, clearly this didn't take place on that date because you just busted the guy wearing the same clothes twice. Or maybe he's got 9 pairs of the same exact shirt, hat, and pants. And he's like me. He's got 40 of the same pairs of jeans. and a bucket of black tea. Oh my God, look, Rob's wearing the same jeans and black tea. No, it's just I've got a million of these to keep it simple. But there you have it. They thought they had busted. Oh, clearly. Yeah, you busted John Gruden for not showering or changing his clothes and shoving it into his golf bag and then just showing back up to play golf again. All right, guys, I got another new sponsor on the show. This one's killer. If you do a lot of online advertising, you got buddies that do a lot of online advertising, I've got a good Jew trick here for you to save a shit ton of money. And you got to go to polygraph.net because it's actually a big problem. Not a lot of media about this, but over $100 billion a year gets stolen from people who are trying to do online advertising. And it's because there's a lot of click fraud. There's a lot of bots out there. There's a lot of inorganic traffic that you're spending money for an ad read. And all of a sudden you get a click, you get a full lead. You're wasting your sales call, your sales guys. You know, they think they got good leads are up there, and you're giving a whole meeting going, we paid a lot of money on these leads. They're good leads. These are the Glengarry Glen Ross. And then you're calling it up, and, you know, there's no phone number. You're just wasting their time. Or they're talking to some homeless guy who likes to answer the payphone because it's bots putting in all the information. So I'm here to tell you, if you want to save some money, save as much as like 20-30% off ad campaigns. You can get a free audit. You go to polygraph.net. And you can find out if a lot of the marketing that you're spending a ton of money on, if the click, you're paying for click, you're paying for lead, you're paying for traffic, whatever you're paying for, you want to validate the fact that it's actually real people. So you got better analytics of, am I paying for trash, and is my marketing actually working? So if you do a lot of online advertising and you want to make sure that you're not just generating a lot of bots that you're paying for, you go to polygraph.net. And you can get a free audit, find out what's going on, and save yourself some money. All right, now let's talk about this recent change from the Department of Defense to the Department of War. We're really celebrating the fact that, Department of Defense at least just sounds like we're trying to protect ourselves. Department of War does sound like we're celebrating that we're trying to get out there and kill people. But, Pete Hegseth and the administration were quite proud of this change of name. I don't know how much I care. It's a name change. I did like this video, which almost seemed fake. It seemed comedically sped up, where I didn't realize how easily they could change the names or the titles on these doors. Let's give it a play, and then I'll comment. But here you have them officially changing Pete Hegseth's door. He's no longer in charge of the Department of Defense. He's the war guy now, and he's real proud of it. Let's give it a watch. It's like a silent film. And look at the speed of how quickly they can do it. Cha-cha, all done, perfectly in place. Which I don't know if government officials get, just promoted, move offices, this quickly. That they've got for all the inefficiencies of government, their ability to replace the name on a wall, maybe you just keep getting promoted the entire time you're in government, or they just continuously change the department that you're in so that when you leave and you go to private practice, you can tell people that you were the head of 45 different government agencies and you just stayed in your office. You pushed papers to the guy in the room over and they kept changing the name on his office. And then you just keep escalating, earning more badges, getting celebrated. If you can just sit there for long enough, most of us, you can go a whole career without a promotion. You can work 10 years for a promotion. But government, they'll just quickly change a sign on the wall, and all of a sudden, Pete Hegseth, he wasn't just the head of the Department of Defense, but he was also the head of the Department of War. Not a bad trick. Maybe you can bring that to the private sector and ask your boss every year even if there's no change in pay and there's no change in what you're doing, if you could just change your title to something a little bit fancier so that if you, at some point, it's not about you applying to different companies, but if for some reason, the company decides to sell to a larger company and you want to take your talents elsewhere, it will be easier for you to get yourself a new position because of all the different fancy titles that you had. It's a good little trick there. Go talk to your boss about having a different position within your own company every single year. All right, and now the return of the most annoying storyline ever. We've got the Maryland man / the El Salvadorian terrorist. And the latest is no asylum, next stop Eswatini. I don't even know what Eswatini is, But, they tried to make him an offer, which was, listen, just admit that you're guilty. We'll send you to Costa Rica. And if you don't, I think the initial threat was that he was going to be going to Uganda. And now I guess the new threat is, or he's already been deported to Eswatini. And I was just thinking of what could be some potentially humorous conclusions to the storyline. The first is, I don't know how this guy seems to have this much money to fight the machine and to have all these court cases. But it would be funny if the left bought him a giant mansion and turned him into a left-wing commentator or just a reality show where he gets to enjoy his beautiful new life in Eswatini. Or if he somehow just managed, like he actually was a criminal and he goes on to become like an African drug lord. We see him on the news in the future as like a North Korean-esque dictator. That'd be a fun... Don't tell me that wouldn't be a fun storyline if we sent somebody off to Africa and then they ended up ruling one of the nations. Don't tell me you wouldn't respect that guy if he Fidel Castro'd his way to the top and literally ended up ruling one of the nations out there, or if he got the mansion and then Trump drone striked it. I'm not endorsing it, but just as far as potential funny conclusions can go. All right, we got a couple other quick storylines in a new section I call cherry picking, which is as I read the news daily and I see storylines that confirm my current point of view, I then cherry pick these without context and give you information that reinforces things that I've already said on the show. So full transparency, we're straight up cherry picking articles here. But the first this is from The Hill. I know a lot of you guys are excited by Donald Trump's idea of using central planning to bring you guys more factory jobs. And as long as he tariffs things from other countries, they'll be forced to make them here. And don't worry about driving up prices or anything else, or how long it takes to open up a new factory, or if people even want those jobs, or if they can make more money in other sectors, such as construction and welding, or even service industries, and there would be more money available to actually pay them to do those things. Don't worry about all that, because it's going to happen. And if we just use enough central planning and force people to manufacture here, at some point down the line, they're going to bring back manufacturing plants, and you'll be able to get yourself a manufacturing job. Well, this was from The Hill. Trump has justified the new taxes by arguing that they will help to reinvigorate U.S. manufacturing and create domestic jobs. He's argued the U.S. will export more products manufactured in the United States and also sell more domestic products in the U.S. But the data shows that at least in the short term, the manufacturing sector is struggling. The economy lost 12,000 manufacturing jobs in August, losing 2,000 jobs in the sector in July and 17,000 in June. The Labor Department reported manufacturing employment has been declining since 2023, continuing a longer-term trend back to the 1980s. And the reason stated in the article, based off of survey data, and this is something that I'd said on the show, was that it's uncertainty of how the tariffs are going to affect business, which is basically creating a bit of a hiring freeze, or companies even firing employees because they're not sure about upcoming profits. Cherry picked. Poland shoots down Russia drone in its airspace in closest act to open conflict since World War II. Once again, I think speaks to something I've said quite a few times on the show, which is the risk of just letting these things linger and escalate. And that the longer that this war goes on for, the more risk we have of escalation. Next, we have New York Health Department defies FDA. Hochul's emergency order pushes off-label COVID shots for kids as young as 3. And why is anyone still this married to COVID shots? What is it about COVID shots that you're unwilling to just walk away? I'd love to interview her. Why do you think that these COVID shots are so absolutely incredible that this many years later, you're trying to find off-label uses to get them into kids? Who are your science advisors that you're sitting down with that think that this technology is so excellent? What exactly do you even think the utility is for off-label COVID shots for kids as young as 3? Why is that so important to you that you're going to push forward on it? All right, and this is another COVID one, and this was from liberal publication, The Guardian. But I'd said during the times when they were pushing us all on wearing masks that, do you really think that fresh air is going to be more dangerous than a plastic mat that was made in a Chinese factory? I mean, if you just had to think for a second, remove yourself from everything they're telling you, and just think about health, let's go with being outdoors. Do you think if a child is outdoors, the fresh air is going to be more dangerous to them than to have a blue colored mask that came from a Chinese factory right up against their face. And now this article does not mention any dangers of having worn these cheap masks for long periods of time, or having a child wear these masks for 2+ years while they're in school, just drooling into the mask, making the thing all wet and having that blueness right up against their face. But apparently there is a problem. I'll read it to you. Disposable face masks used during COVID have left chemical time bomb, research suggests. So you got a liberal publication here talking about that we've disposed of all these masks, and there's so many chemicals in the mask, it might be bad for the environment. Once again, they're not even talking about the dangers of having had these glued to kids' faces for 2 years, but now, oh my God, unforeseen consequence. There's so many chemicals in this thing. It's actually bad that we have all them in our landfills. Here, I'll give it a bit of a read. An estimated 129 billion were being used every month around the world at the height of the pandemic, with no recycling stream. The surge in the use of disposable face masks during the COVID pandemic has left a chemical time bomb that could harm humans, animals, and the environment, research suggests. Millions of tons of plastic face masks created to protect people from the spread of the virus are now breaking down, releasing microplastics and chemical additives, including endocrine disruptors, the research found. As a result, the very equipment which was intended to protect people during the pandemic now poses a risk to the health of people and the planet, potentially for generations. There you go. Another unforeseen consequence. And in this case, not even addressing, well, was it bad that we had this glued to kids' faces? All right. That is our episode. Thank you for hanging out with us. Once again, sad and tragic day. And hopefully someone picks up the Charlie Kirk mantle and is able to continue the work that he was doing. And we see less violence towards people for just speaking their opinions. Truly tragic. That is the episode. Back next week, Wednesday, with another episode. At some point, we're going to get back to doing 2 a week because I'd prefer to do shorter, more regular episodes, but this is where we're at. And you can go to porchstore.com because I will be out in Birmingham, Alabama, Atlanta, and Anderson, South Carolina this weekend. And then next week, I'm doing Las Vegas with Dave. And then on Sunday, I'm back outside of Phoenix, Arizona. That has always been one of the highlights of the Porch Tour. So go to porchstore.com. That is it for today. Back next